This season is brought to you by the Working Garden Project. Did you know that 74% of employees struggle to disconnect from work? The significant percentage say that their job negatively impacts their mental and social well-being. And many employees are considering leaving jobs that don't support their overall health. They need solutions. And based on all the positive benefits that we know that can come from nature, nature can be one of them. The Working Garden Project is a nationwide effort to bring the benefits of nature and communal gardening to workplaces across the country. To learn more about how to bring the Working Garden Project to your company, head to workinggardenproject.com. Whether your company is big or small, the Working Garden Project has solutions to create more happiness, engagement, and productivity in the workplace. Again, that's workinggardenproject.com. Hello, I'm your host, Jessica Moran, and this is Inside and Outside, a nature and pop culture podcast. I'm a horticultural therapist and writer who is equally obsessed with how gardening can change our brain and also keeping up with my girls from Rhode Island. Are you watching Rhode Island? There's only one season. It's so easy to jump in. I'm obsessed with Alicia. So on this podcast, we start outside and talk about something involving nature. And then my guest and I go inside and we talk about their latest current inside obsession, like a show they're binging, food and fashion trends they love or hate, or any other current weird inside obsession. Before we get to today's guest, one quick note, I'm hosting a flower pressing workshop in Columbus, Ohio on Tuesday, July 14th at Fine Feather Shop. Fine Feather is this beautiful, clean beauty store, so many good scents, makeup, and things. I always want to spend $1 million when I'm there. And you kind of can spend $1 million because your ticket to the event comes with store credit, which is really cool, something I've never seen before, and I love it. In this workshop, you will learn all about the history of pressing flowers, why it helps your brain, the best practices, and then we're going to make something together. It's just going to be a really creative, cozy, just a nice night to be together, and I will include a link to this workshop in the show notes. Again, Columbus, Ohio, Tuesday, July 14th at Fine Feather. All right, today's guest. I think about the women in my life and all that they are doing and just being in awe of so many of them. Lauren and her sister Cath are two of those people. Just amazed at what they have done. Lauren, who I'm talking to today, Lauren Lar Lee, is my buddy and the co-founder of Semaine Health, which is a women's supplement brand that I can tell you actually works. I used to use it a lot when I had bad periods and still use it when I feel like I have a UTI coming on. She doesn't brag about how big and successful her company has become, but it has, and I just feel so proud to know her. In this episode, we talk about the hope that nature can bring to our lives, the parallels of gardening and running a startup, using nature to help manage stress and ovary issues. And then we go inside where Lauren shares her inside pick, which I didn't see coming. We talk about historical clothing and the differences between what they actually were and what we see on TV, bathing back then. It's a really interesting conversation. It's something I've never really thought of. And then, of course, that conversation leads to body image, GLP-1s, and modern day corsets. One thing we didn't get to, which I want to include in the show notes, is Lar said that one of her all-time favorite garden shows is this 90s TV special with Audrey Hepburn called Gardens of the World. I started watching it, and just hearing Audrey Hepburn talk about gardens is a lullaby. So I will include that in the show notes and everything else we talked about, including ways that we can work together to help you start a garden, to help you learn how nature can help with your mental, social, physical health. And if you have questions or want to know more about how we can work together, you can always message me, hello@baskergardens.com. All right, here's my conversation with Lauren. Hi, welcome to the podcast. I never call you Lair, but is that what you go by?
in the Semaine world, I go by Lar. Yeah, I do go by Lar, and Cath calls me Lar. So Lauren or Lar is what I answer to. Either
Okay,
one.
because like
Perfect.
I've never called you that before, but as your name popped up, like in this recording, it said Lar, and I was like, shit, is that what she goes by?
Oh
So,
gosh, no, don't worry. I go by both. I
okay,
also go
great.
by Catherine because most people get us confused. So
And do you also know, you would never know this, I just have you in my phone as Lauren Semaine. And so sometimes I'm like, I don't even actually know what your real last name is.
and that makes sense because that's basically my entire life. So Semaine makes more sense than, and my last name is still my maiden name. I never changed it, so it's Lee, Lee.
I should probably put you in as Lar Lee and be
Exactly.
more appropriate. All right. Welcome to the podcast. We got the names out of the way. On this podcast, we talk about inside things and outside things, and we always start outside. And for my non-horticulture people, I always bring some nature news, a really cool study or research that shows the impact that nature has on us. But I thought I would do a little something different. Last night, we had our first Basker Garden Club, and our theme of last night was the theme of begin again. And, I think the garden, growing plants, I mean, there's a million metaphors for how it can connect to our own personal things that we're going through. And just the idea of spring and beginning again, it's just this sense of hope. And, it's like your perennials are coming back. And if people aren't familiar with a perennial, it's a plant that will come back each year for a certain amount of time. An annual is something that you plant every year. But there's just this sense of hope when you start to see things emerge, even if it's, some leaves on a tree. And so are you feeling a sense of begin again right now? Like, how are you feeling? Because I think with everything going on in the world, like we need this begin again feeling.
Good. Yes, absolutely. Because I just made a major life change and a move. So it
Yeah.
definitely feels like a begin again. Happened during spring. I was moving from California, which where we were didn't really have seasons,
Mm-hmm.
to we lucked out moving to New York City right as they were done with all of the blizzards that they got this year. And everything was coming into bud and blooming. So it really did feel like a fresh beginning for myself, for my husband, moving to New York City. It's our first time living here. And even though we're still working on building our business that we've been building for the past 6 years, we also are making changes in our business. And I think it comes down to beginning again here in a new place.
Oh, okay. I kind of want to know offline about the changes that you're making to your business, but
Yeah.
and also it's wild that you have only had your business for 6 years, which I know is not a short amount of time, but you have accomplished so much in 6 years. I thought it was way longer than that. That's
Oh my
crazy.
gosh, you are so kind. I feel like because we're in the startup world, people are like, wow, you guys have been around for 6 years. Like, yeah. I'm like, I know. But that is so it's true. Like I didn't think we'd still be in business 6 years later. That's a long time. It's like a long time in a positive way. So I know it's been a really long time. We started in March 2020, everybody's favorite time of 2020. Um, and have been going and going strong ever since. So yeah, six
Wow.
years.
That's amazing. So, with this idea of begin again too, last night at the garden club, we just talked about how, going back to that sense of hope. And I grow seedlings in my office, and I have like a light set up in here. And I had transplanted them out of all their little plug trays into 4-inch pots. But every single morning I come into the office, and instead of looking at my phone or the news or anything, I'll just go look at my seedlings first thing. And the other day, I kind of forgot they weren't in here anymore. And I came in and I just looked at this dark, like, tray without anything. And I'm like, like, it just felt like such a, like a weird feeling to not have that boost of hope.
Hmm.
And I think, as you're starting to figure out your plant life in New York, what are little things that you're doing to get that hope?
I love that idea, and I can relate very literally to that too, because I love growing things, and we haven't physically grown plants since we've been in New York the past 6 weeks. With plants, we actually have grow lights to set up so we can
Mm,
start planting things and
hmm.
seeing that, because I think seeing that every day has such a huge impact on you. When we were in California, we had a garden, and just seeing the changes every single day from our roses, from our lavender, like that gave me so much peace of mind. And Matt and I would go out in the morning before we started our workday, and like I felt like, my dad is an old Chinese guy. I feel like an old Chinese man. I put my hands behind my back and sort of wander slowly around the garden and like point things out. That was like our favorite thing to do. Now in New York, we don't have that. We're in an apartment. We do have a fire escape, so there's room there for some plants. But really, as far as sort of that seed, planting that seed and thinking about hoping for the future. Yeah, we have to kind of do that daily with our business with Semaine, because yeah, starting your own business is really hard, and I am not naturally an optimistic person.
Mm,
And I have to work that muscle a lot, because you're always taking risk with the hope that things will work out for the business, because you're making these very risky decisions in order to grow a business very fast, or just make very big decisions that can change the trajectory of your company and then impact the people in the business with you. So every morning feels like a sort of study in that, because it and sometimes the little seedlings don't make it, and
hmm.
sometimes we are planting the ideas and they do grow and take off. So I think it's more of a mental thing that we're having to do on a daily basis, and and I feel like have done to some amount of success over the past 6 years.
You know, and I don't want this to turn into a health podcast because I already had a health podcast,
You
wellness
did
podcast. I'm
a
not
great
doing that
one.
again.
Yeah.
Um, but so we're not just if anyone's listening, like I don't feel like you talking about chronic illness again. We're not going. This is not going to be becoming that show. But you said something that really struck me when you were talking about how you're not naturally an optimistic person, and something that I've been really working on and thinking about a lot is I, I think when you live with a chronic illness, especially one like endometriosis, you have endometriosis as well, you're kind of always waiting for something bad to happen.
Yes.
Like you have a cyst burst, you have to get a new surgery, you're going to bleed out through your pants, which is, not as bad as a surgery, but you know, I've really been thinking a lot about how sometimes I am not an overly optimistic person, or it's not even that I'm not optimistic. I'm kind of thinking like, okay, I'm bracing myself for the next bad thing to happen, which is a fucking awful way for your brain to work. But I've discovered through talking a lot and reading a lot, it's because my brain has been conditioned to feel like that having a chronic illness. And I was just curious if you've ever explored that for yourself.
Not as directly as you have. I don't have a therapist right now, and I need one. But I feel like that totally makes sense, right? I of course, yeah, having endo, having had emergency surgery and things getting very scary and going wrong. It's funny, when I got to that point in my life, it was, yes, always bracing against pain. You're sort of always waiting for the next bad thing to happen physically to your body. Your body literally doesn't feel safe,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
you don't feel safe in your body. And
Yeah.
so for sure, it's hard. You can't trust what I think a lot of people, at least when they're teenagers and in their 20s and 30s, your body is not something you usually have to think about or brace against that at such a young age. And so, for sure, I feel like a lot of that is you with with a chronic condition, you also can't plan ahead as well, right? I
Yes.
remember you kind of have to be like, yeah, I would love to do that with you. There's a chance I won't make it because I'm not going to feel good. I'll be too tired. I'll be in too much pain.
Hmm.
So planning for the future is really tricky. And I think just to tie it back to your seeds, thinking about gardening, there's that Audrey Hepburn quote where she says, like, to plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow. And
Yes.
it sounds really cliched, but like, think, I remember when I first heard that, I was like, wow, yeah, that is so true, right? Because it's like that is, and that's not the way my brain would naturally work.
Yes. And I think that's why, you know, I was always a veggie gardener, but I didn't learn to grow cut flowers and really learn to grow from seed until after I had to get my ovaries removed and had to get a hysterectomy because I had developed adenomyosis. And man, when I discovered it, I just latched onto it like nobody's business. And I think you're right. I think it's because it was giving me that daily hope that it's like, okay, here's this thing that's growing. Here's this thing that's changing. Because, like you said, I do think that sometimes it is so hard to plan. It's much easier for me to plan now that I don't have ovaries, but um, it's, yeah, I think I really clung to it and still do because it does give me that hope in a way that maybe I didn't realize. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no, I think, it's funny because talking about running a startup in a sort of stressful business situation, it is one reason why Matt and I both got into gardening because I think in the stressful business startup world, it feels like you have to make sure you're nurturing everything. And if something fails, that's a responsibility and a failure on you. And also so much is very much out of your hands.
Hmm.
You can work really hard and there's no right path. And I think gardening felt like something a lot more grounding because you could, yeah, of course, things happen in the garden, you learn and grow, but it doesn't feel like this intensity that we felt with the
Yeah.
business. So it was like,
Yeah.
we can nurture this thing and watch it daily and get sort of the peace of mind from it. I never thought, especially Matt, I feel like I come from like a lineage of gardeners in my mom's side of the family. But Matt
Hmm.
was a complete surprise. My husband's a scientist. He's spent his adult life in labs, and he was never really that interested in plants. And then, starting a business, he needed that outlet. I think it was like the physicality of it, but then also like there is a lot more predictability in the planting and watching things grow than we had in our career.
Yeah. Cause it's like, okay, let's buy a pack of Cosmos.
Yeah,
95% of these are going to germinate. And then
exactly.
it's like, whereas the freaking tariffs, it's like
Oh my
out of
gosh.
your control. It's like,
Yeah.
as much as there's not total control in gardening, at least you can kind of feel like you're a team with this plant as opposed to something like these opposing forces coming in and messing things up for you.
Exactly. And I think it's because gardening, being in nature, there's something that even if things take a different course than you think it's going to, I don't know, it's the intensity is different. Whereas, like, as listeners, people might not necessarily be building a business, but everybody has these stressful, intense things in their lives, right? That I think feel like are out of control, whether it is, politically or on a global scale or just at home, things are stressful. It's like everybody understands that having something that feels predictable and sort of grounding is so important.
And this is not even exaggerating. I do not know what I would do if I did not have a garden right now.
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe I'd have to go to like some retreat center to have like a breakdown or something. I really feel like it's the thing that is like getting me up every day just to like tend to something, have hope, share. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is like so much about plants to me is the social well-being aspect of it all. Like,
Hmm.
I talked about having that garden club last night with people and it was people from all over the country. We all came together, people laughed, people cried, and it was just we came together because of plants. And,
Love
and
that.
it was really special too, because, there was a couple people there that don't have a garden. One person said, I'm coming because I want to be friends with people that have gardens. It's just such a unifying thing. And I think, we can look at it as sometimes it seems a little trite or cute, but the power of it is just unreal. So I'm glad that you feel it too.
100%. I think nature and being in nature and what you're always talking about, I think it's fundamental to everybody's well-being.
So, all right, let's move inside. I was very excited about your inside pick. I get so giddy, Giddy, not giddy images. I say get so giddy about people's inside picks. So today, the categories are TV, book, or movie, internet gossip you must discuss, food or fashion trend you love or hate, or wild card. What are you bringing us today?
I feel like they fit in a lot of that buckets. What do you think? Kind of a wild card because it's everything.
Yeah, but also fashion?
I do think, okay, yes, yes, if you want to edit out all this, like,
No, we're not editing.
okay,
Yeah, well, you
I'll
just
get
go
there.
for it. It
Um,
encompasses so many things. So go ahead.
It does. I mean, Jessica, I was telling you that, like, I just, one of my sort of side quests, I think, as a way to relax is watching period dramas. Always has been. I've always loved a good period drama. But more specifically, looking at the fashion and learning about what is actually historically accurate. Just, I
Mm.
find that fascinating because I love to know what did it actually feel like to be living in 1815 and walking around and your corset or your weird hairstyle, and like how clean did you feel by like today's standards, and there's so many
Okay,
things. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah. What, we
always
can start there.
think about, are they so stinky and musty?
So, I mean, it would be different for different people because of the access you had to water and to servants, honestly.
Right.
But I mean, people wanted, just generalizing, and I am definitely an armchair, I was saying armchair YouTube historian. So I'm a real historian, could really set you straight. But high level, for the most part, when we're looking at people in medieval times all the way through, early 20th century, it's like we always assume people are going to smell so bad. And of course, yes, they probably had more odors than we do today. But people wanted to be clean. And so a lot of people didn't have access to the amount of water you would need to bathe in. So that's often why we heard people didn't take baths. That's true. They weren't taking baths because who is lugging up how many gallons of water to even fill a small tub?
Right.
With bigger families, you would take turns within the same water, right? Because it's like you're not switching out that water when you live in a tenement in the 1850s in New York somewhere, right? It's like, so most people were essentially taking cat baths in the morning. You had your like basin with water and you would still wash yourself. You just weren't actually taking a bath. And for the most part, women weren't obviously washing their hair that often because they were wearing it up. Women wore their hair up. When we see period dramas where like the ingenue has her hair like floating everywhere, and
Yeah.
that was not the case. I mean, for one, women had their heads covered. We don't think of the like Western world where like covering your head was part of our culture, but it very much was. It was like
Mm.
being religious, and you did have your hair covered with something. Whether it was a simple cap or a hat, you had your head covered. And so part of that too, if it was a fabric hat, like some sort of linen, that was helping to wick some of the oil away. But also, you were wearing your hair up, so it wasn't getting, sure, it was getting oily, but you weren't having the same issues that we think of, like, oh, my hair is looking so greasy, I need to throw some dry shampoo in there. It was just different how you like, it styled your hair, how you did your ablutions in the morning. Like it was just different, and people wanted to be clean. The standard definitely is different. We didn't have the surfactants that we have now to like scrub ourselves. Um, I remember when this was back in like 2012, I went to Greece with Matt's family, and his sister works in NGOs and has lived part-time in different parts of Africa and Asia. And when we were in Greece, the island we were staying on was fairly remote. We didn't get a lot of water pressure. So for the week, we were bathing literally with bottles of water. Like the
Hmm.
shower didn't work, the tub didn't work. And I remember telling Matt's sister, I was like, "Oh, I just feel kind of dirty. Like, you can't get your hair clean. I feel kind of dirty." And she was like, in the nicest way, without judgment, she was like, this is how most of the world exists, right? Like, this is how most of us
Yeah.
have existed for centuries, but also how a lot of people, this is the amount of water and bathing they can do. And that really, like, sort of blew my mind because I was like, of course, I'm coming from this very privileged, like, of course, I'm going to have running water and a bath and, like that it's just a different way of thinking how lucky we are to get all the water that we
Yeah.
get to use every day, and how
I
hard that
find
was.
baths so okay, hot. People will hate me. I find baths disgusting. It's like, in terms of the water use of it, I'm like,
Oh,
you're
yeah, yeah.
filling up this bath to sit in this filth for like 15 minutes and then you're gonna drain it all. Like, I don't get it. I just
I feel
think
like
baths
there's
are
that,
so wasteful.
I I remember there's a Friends episode where Monica says that. She's like, "Bats are gross because you're just sitting in dirty water." And I think Chandler's like, "How dirty do you think I am?" When she's telling him that. And I am not a bath person either. I am 100% a shower person. Um, But I get like people feel very relaxed and soothed taking a
I
bath.
get it. It's just,
Um,
I don't know. And
and
okay, can we go back really quick? So when I was saying the people would be stinky, I was specifically talking about their clothes versus like their,
oh, they're like washing
because
habits.
yeah, because well, washing habits with the clothes, right? Because
Mm-hmm,
when you watch a lot of these period pieces or you see, photos, these women couldn't show skin, right? So they're
mm-hmm.
fully covered head to toe, long sleeves, floor length skirts in freaking summer. It makes me feel like their clothes would just smell. Have you ever been to just like an extremely musty thrift store?
Oh
It
yeah.
just seems like the mustiness would just be insane.
I mean, I think you're right. There was definitely, I'm sure there was mustiness. Like for our noses today, we'd be like, oh my God, too much. But I think one thing too that we don't realize is the layers of clothing that they would wear. So it's like against your body, you would
Exactly.
always
That's a lot
have.
of
It's
layers.
a lot of layers, and so, I mean, they're extremely heavy, but the first layer was always like a chemise, or I'm not sure what it was called in earlier times, but you'd have a layer
Mm.
of linen or cotton. So, when you see like, I don't know, Victorian bodice rippers where the women are wearing their corset right against their skin, that wouldn't happen historically. You'd have a chemise on
Oh.
and then the corset on top because, yeah, you don't wash a corset. It's made out of whale boning and sometimes beautiful fabric. You're wearing a chemise under that. So something that would hit your armpits, that would cover you. And at different times, that was
Yes.
essentially your underwear, right? That was what you were wearing underneath. And that got washed if you were, wealthier, that got washed every day. You wore a different one every day. And then the clothing on top, depending what it was made out of, wouldn't be washed. So if you are thinking like Victorian era, 19th century, like, yeah, the silks and the taffetas and the satins, those would not be washed. They would maybe be spot cleaned, they would be brushed out, hung out by servants if you were lucky enough, or you would do it yourself. So there were ways of like airing things out, and you would definitely be washing your body and then the underlayer, your underwear that you're wearing under that every single day.
Yeah,
And
you're so right, because when you watch a movie or something, they're just tightening those corsets right up onto their body. Like, they don't
yeah,
show
exactly.
anything under it. Because obviously for film or TV, it looks more sexy that way, I guess. But
Exactly, exactly. And I think that, yeah, I think most people assume that, yeah, you're just wearing it right up against your skin. And like, because if you're undressing somebody in a movie, like you take off the corset and then you have this boxy, like cotton chemise, like how
right.
sexy is that? So it's like, yeah, the corset and the untying. And I got really fascinated by corsetry too, because we always see it as a sort of torture device for women, like
Hmm.
you were smushing your organs. Women would break ribs in order to fit into
But
these
also Kim
corsets.
Kardashian is doing that right now. So
Exactly. And like, well, and what's interesting is when the way that we're thinking about it, like if you grew up watching, I don't know, Gone with the Wind, where they're like really pulling on these corsets, that was something called tight lacing, which not most people did. It would be like the Kim Kardashians of the world, like a select few sort of fashionistas or women who really cared about getting teeny tiny, 18-inch waist or whatever, would be doing that tight lacing, what was called tight lacing.
Mhm.
Most women, it wasn't. You were lacing up your corset, but it wasn't to smush everything in. It was only in the sort of extreme, realm where people would wear corsets that tight. And I watch a lot of women who wear period clothes now and try to get them accurate. And they talk about how there's actually a lot of freedom in wearing the different sort of corset styles that were popular in Western eras, everywhere from 1600s to the 1900s, because your body didn't have to fit a specific shape. The corset
Mm.
was doing the work for you. So there's more freedom in that because whether it was, Victorian times where you had a bustle, you didn't have to get a BBL. The bustle was working for you, right? Like it
Yeah.
was like, and the same with the corset. If you were supposed to have like sort of like lifted up boobs and a really tiny waist, the corset did that for you. If it was just supposed to be about a flowy dress and you just wore a sort of a short corset, the corset did that for you. Whereas like now with, body image, it's all about like you have to be working out at the gym, taking your GLP-1s and forcing your body to conform to the
Mm.
shape rather than fashion sort of doing it for you. So a lot of the women who do the period dressing now talk about how it feels more like an equalizer,
Mm.
and we've just been sort of conditioned to think about corsetry and underwear for women as this sort of cage. And not to say it wasn't, there's definitely a restriction in movement and weird cultural norms imposed, but still it wasn't like most women were wearing it to do crazy things, right? In
I
some ways
mean,
there was
TikTok
freedom.
is a much bigger cage than a real corset. I mean, my
Oh,
God.
yes, it is. Oh my
I
gosh,
mean,
yes. Yeah.
Jesus, it's like it's just, and I just saw this thing. God, what was it? Have you seen this thing called here, let me just look this up really quick. It's called Real, oh, here, what it is. It Her 75. Have you seen this?
No. What is that?
So Her 75 is this app, and it's number 7 in the app store right now. I just saw, and it's basically the 75-day challenge with friends, but it's basically eating strict 2 workouts a day. Like, these are the type of goals. And if you go, like, Her 75 on TikTok is now has all of these like AI accounts, and they are AI generated women that have lost like dramatic amount of weight. But it's crazy when you compare, like, in this newsletter, I'll post this in the show notes. There's like 3 different pages that are promoting the Her 75 with like befores and afters, but they're the exact same pages. They've just swapped out the women's faces, and it's like purely AI, their befores and afters. And it's so disturbing that if you don't know it's AI and you don't know that there's 6 other of these accounts, like, you think it's like real women. It is so scary and so sad and should not be legal.
Oh my gosh. I can't I think now I just Googled it, so I'm like, I'm gonna get all the Her 75 stuff on my phone. Thanks, Jessica. No, I that is insane. And it is because I think about that too, as far as, like I'm 42 and watching my face age or my body change. And like you're not only are you comparing yourself to uh AI, you're also comparing yourself to celebrities that have so much money to spend on whatever their procedures they're doing too, that we have. Yeah, social media is so hard for all of us. I mean, especially women, but so hard for all of us to see like you're not really allowed to age and this is what the standard is, whether it's real people or now AI, to think, oh, if only I had enough discipline for this Her 75, I could lose weight or
I
look a
mean,
certain way.
it's all fake, dude. It's like, I think to tie it back to Bravo, which I always like to do. Do you ever watch What Happens Live? Have you ever
I
seen that
haven't
show?
seen it. No, I haven't.
Okay. So Watch What Happens Live is like kind of like a Bravo nighttime show. There's always two chairs of like a Bravo person or a big celebrity. And then they have a very, very small audience, like with like 15 people in it. And there's always an audience question. And the audience question, the person that always asks it, they look so different than
Mm-hmm.
the celebrities, right? And it's like, they almost sometimes look like, oh, well, why didn't she like brush her hair? Or why didn't she like wear a nicer outfit? Or it's like, it's because she's not have everything done. She's actually like a normal looking person that's asking the question, but she no longer looks normal
Right.
compared to these people. She looks like she's not taking care of herself, which is insane. Do you get what I'm saying here? It's
100%, because like
weird.
I feel like, you're it's so hard to be immune from that. I feel like that's the when I look at the mirror, I'm like, oh yeah, this should really be doing this, so that it's almost like it's like letting yourself go by just naturally being a human. You're
Right.
letting yourself go.
And I think like these people probably look like, again, they're normal looking, beautiful people. But I think like with a lot of the celebrities and even just influencers that have done dramatic things to their faces, it's so normalized on film or on TV or on like your phone, but they must look wild in person. That in real life would look like a character of that person.
Exactly. Yeah, because I think that is strange because we judge everything through a screen or on a screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even sometimes I like just being a woman, like you think about this stuff a lot. Lindsay Lohan, like she was like, everyone's like, oh my gosh, she's had the best work done. I
Mm-hmm.
think she's around our age, late 30s and her 40s. And I was like, yeah, her face does look amazing. She looks like the same as she did 20 years ago. And then I watched one of her holiday movies and she still looks beautiful, but her face moves different, right? Like it doesn't move like how a normal face would move. And I think we've all seen that with celebrities that we follow, where you're like, oh my gosh, they look amazing. The Devil Wears Prada cast hasn't aged in the last 20 years now that the second movie's coming out, and they are incredible and they're aging like fine wine. And I'm like, no, they're doing all the things, right? It's like
Right.
they have all the things, they can do all the things, but now to us that has become normalize, us as consumers, just looking at media.
Yes. Yeah. Well, anyone that wants to do anything to themselves, I love it for them. Like I've had a breast reduction because I want to get another one. They're so big still, but I'm not, I don't care what people do to themselves. I just care that it's starting to harm people's mental health and not understanding like what reality is. Because before we didn't have access to this many faces.
Yeah, we didn't have access to as many faces, and I feel like most people didn't have access to the procedures. Now it's like, I don't know, fillers and Botox are more accessible, and maybe like the type of surgery that Kris Jenner is getting is not what most people can get or whatever, but there's still an accessibility for middle class, let's say, which wasn't there before. So then you feel more of the pressure. And also, I think it's just hard because a lot of us are like, oh, looking in the mirror and you see yourself aging and you're like, I would just feel better about myself if I did X, Y, or Z. But would you feel better about yourself because culturally we're now conditioned to think that is the better thing, right? That
Right.
is what you should be
Mhm.
looking like. It's like we would only feel better if culturally we were more accepted. We're tribal beings. So then we're telling people like, yeah, if you're not aging, that is the norm, that is the acceptance. Then we all feel the pressure to do that. I think it'd be really hard to live in, yeah, our screen filled world now, in this accessibility to all the treatments, and not be like, oh, I should be doing something because there's so much pressure to do that as a convention rather than something that is, oh, a few hand select people from Orange County are doing that, right? Now it's like, no,
Right.
everybody does it.
Yeah. Well, I'll be living in Italy and aging beautifully, eating pasta and having tons
Okay.
of wrinkles. So
Well, I love it. I'll come join you. That's what I want to do.
we won't have phones. Well, we'll
Ah,
have like a flip phone so we can connect. Um,
exactly. That's all you need.
well, circling back to your inside pick, I just love that this is a fascination of yours. I love that you even went down the rabbit hole of finding current people that are dressing like this. I'm probably going to do a little YouTubing today on this too. It's very fascinating. Maybe I should look into corsets. Just kidding. But I am in this weird place body wise, which I've always kind of lived in, where I'm too quote unquote small to be in plus size, but I'm too quote unquote big to be in standard size. So it's this weird middle ground where I've like tried to shop plus size, but then everything is just too big. But then like the biggest size at another place is a little too small. So maybe I'll invest in a corset.
I mean,
Or get
you
some more
know,
padding so then I could
it's
fit into
like
the bigger size.
it's like I do they're like the idea of like a corset giving you some sort of freedom because it's like shaping the body for you. I mean, obviously it's like yes, it's lovely. We don't have to wear those things anymore. But I that just like blew my mind. I was like, yeah, to not have to have this specific body type and I can't imagine too with GLP-1s changing everything. You know, it's changing a lot of plus size clothing lines have gone away because of
Yes.
GLP-1s. And so like,
Or the extended sizes are gone at regular brands.
right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird time to shop for clothes. I mean, it's always been a weird time to shop for clothes if you've got some hips and ass and boobs, but it felt a lot easier 3 to 5 years ago when curves were like cool and acceptable.
Yep,
Now they're not
totally.
anymore and it's like Jesus, it makes it very difficult to shop.
Well, it's like we fell off the cliff with body positivity. I mean, I think it was GLP-1s, but they weren't quite as big yet. I do feel like it was like the switch to maybe more conservative, just culture and society. There something switched back that unfortunately shouldn't have. And then with GLP-1s and sort of normalizing that like waif like look again, it just like, yeah, that I feel like we've taken enormous strides backwards. I mean, and this is not to say I'm just vilifying GLP-1s. I don't mean that. I think they've been great for people who like use them health wise too. It makes a lot of sense. But as far as like, us now thinking that then being uber skinny is the norm again, just feels like such a regression. I feel like it goes back to the screen thing and like how much we're influenced. It's like, in Hollywood, actors have always been skinnier, I feel like, than the average person. Or let me just bring it back to history again. It's like people always assume people back in the day were much tinier. And for the most part, like people were shorter. A lot of people were malnourished, speaking generally. But a lot of the time, the clothing that we have, like the beautiful gowns, let's say from the 1880s, we still have those and they're the smaller ones because people would use gowns with more fabric. They would turn them into something else. So that's
Mm.
not true across the board, but there's very few extant gowns that are larger because they would be repurposed. You didn't waste beautiful fabric, right? And
Whoa.
if you had smaller pieces, you're not going to be able to reuse those into something else. So our perception too of what was normal size back in the day is also skewed. I love history so much because it's like you're looking back, it's like we just know the touches of history that we see the most in media and don't understand how, yeah, there were very normal sized people in Victorian times. We just don't see that. And of course, the actors we see portraying those people now are uber skinny. So there's
Hmm.
just an assumption that people were always very, very tiny.
Wow. And that's why I did love that. I say love, liked that one season of Bridgerton. The name of the actress is escaping me right now, but she was definitely a bigger person that we've ever seen during that time period. What's her name? Like Nicolette or something? Do you
Yes,
know the
yes,
um
yes.
You know
She's
what I'm talking about.
Irish.
She's like
Yeah, she's
redhead.
blonde.
Yeah,
Oh,
blonde.
she's I think of
Wasn't
her
she
from
a
Dairy Girls.
redhead?
I think she was
Yes.
redheaded in Bridgerton, but I think of her in
Yes.
Dairy Girls and she's blonde. Yes,
Totally.
she's amazing. And she's actually I've seen her interviewed about it and like she's like it always surprises me when other women are like, "You're so brave to be on screen in your
That's such
body."
a
And
inch.
she's
That's disgusting.
like that's not what I'm thinking about when I'm
Right.
acting and I'm not thinking I'm just really brave because like
People still
I will
say
show
that
up.
to people?
Yeah, yeah,
That's so
yeah.
gross. My
But I think
God.
it's and especially now, right? Like we're talking about in the
Well, now,
GLP-1
yes,
world, it's
especially.
like, "Oh, you're so brave." Kate Winslet got that all the time and she was teeny tiny.
Oh
It's
my
like
God.
we're like but also, yeah, I mean, I'm sure people know this a little bit better historically, like plumpness, through the probably 17th century onward was like a sign of wealth, right? Because you could afford to eat. So being if you saw somebody like the actresses now, you would assume they didn't have money for food, right? So it's
Hmm.
like you're like that is an unhealthy person. They're not eating. So yeah, you would have
Wow.
had people who weren't, stick figures like we would assume they would be.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll end it with this. You're helping women with your company, Semaine. So thank you for doing that. Um, if people want to find you, you don't talk about period piece costumes anywhere, but
I
if people want
don't.
to
That's
find you
true.
talk about women's health, where should they go?
They should go to SemaineHealth.com or at Semaine Health for Instagram and TikTok. We're there. Semaine is Semaine, and it is the French word for the week. We wanted to highlight the cyclical nature of women's bodies at every age and every stage. So yeah, usually I think I'm talking about women's health a lot more, but period drama, I never get to talk about period dramas in history. So thanks, Jessica.
Oh
This
my
was so
God, of
fun.
course. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
That's today's show. If you like this episode or any of the Inside and Outside episodes, please leave a review. You might not think it helps, but it really does. It helps you get into that little algorithm better and also lets advertisers know that you enjoy this show. All right, on Apple, here's how you do it. Go to the homepage, scroll all the way down to the end of the episodes, and you'll see something that says rating and reviews. Hit that 5 stars, write something. Just say love it if you want to. On Spotify, go to the homepage of the show. You'll see a little tiny gear icon. It'll have a drop down that says rate this show, leave 5 stars. There you can't even write anything. And that's it. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for listening to the show, and I'll talk to you next week.